In his youth, he served Nigeria, sacrificing his most productive years for the motherland. Now, these senior citizens has nothing to show for decades of dedication and loyalty. 75-year-old Haruna Musa worked for the defunct Nigeria Airways. As he recounts his ordeal, his voice is calm but heavy with sadness.
My dream for my children was to give them the best education, even if I would sow Gary. But that decision thwarted my efforts grossly. Because number one, I had to think of relocating from Lagos. I had to squat to make sure that one of my daughter finished her primary school, so the transition to secondary school not be a problem. And one of them, I had to squat to manage to see that one of them to finish her nursery school first. What about those that didn't have that muscle amongst us? As a result, that's how some of our colleagues died. And that's how some had stroke. And that was the end of the family. In the present situation in Nigeria, or from the onset, can relations shoulder the responsibility of bringing up your children for you?
So initially, pension fund administration in Nigeria was very problematic. People retire and then they are not able to access the funds. So there was a whole reform on the Pension Act. The whole idea was to rearrange that space so that pension will now be contributory. There's something the employer gives on behalf of the employee, and there's something that government pays. PENCOM, the administrative agency that is responsible for Nigeria's pension space. Now the idea is that when people work for the government, it's certainly expected that at some point they'll be retiring. Now the way the idea of pension is to ensure that while these people are working, they are saving something that they can use after retirement.
I was a chief purser with Nigeria Airways for 29 years, and along the line there was a time all the fleets of presidential aeroplanes were under Nigeria Airways, both maintenance and operational, all operational aspects, crewing and maintenance. So right from 1977, we were not laid off. Liquidation was the last option on International Finance Corporation's recommendation, because federal government consulted with IFC. IFC submitted a report, but we didn't know whether somebody just woke up and decided for the last option, because even with 500 staff, Nigeria Airways would have survived. Liquidated, is it good, a good word to liquidate a human being? Over 5,000 staff. And as at then, we were told to go home. But we protested because our colleagues in the advanced countries were paid off as per the requirement. They followed the rules because they didn't want any legal issue with any country. And airline business, being an international business, they have to follow the law. So they settled. Our expatriate staff were paid off. But it was after a legal tussle, because our lawyers to our union representatives filed a case for us. So we filled a form that we are not laid off because we are a parastatal, like any parastatal, and federal government took over the responsibility of paying us off because it's federal government that liquidated the airline, gave the receivership of the liquidation to a receiver. So they claimed that the assets of Nigeria Airways could not offset our entitlements. So that negotiation between the receiver and the federal government had to arrange to pay us, and that's what made our case to be alive up to now. If not, we could have been forgotten.
I'm Christiana Adama Uba. I am the National Gender Officer of Nigerian Union of Pensioners Contributory Pension Section. I retired in 2015 from the Budget Office of the Federation. At the inception of this contributory pension, I was the Departmental Pension Officer in MOD, Ministry of Defense. Then I asked them so many questions as to how effective this thing is going to be to us. You know, a lot of civil servants as of today don't know what we are passing through. They don't even know how evil this contributory pension is. Just like we then. I asked them, and the answer they gave me was that because of the flaws that they saw in the defined benefit pension scheme, that is why they now brought in contributory pension, that the civil servants will contribute and government will contribute to make it easier for civil servants. That once the person is retiring, that very day you are retiring, they will give you your check and everything. It was a deceit. And I believe God will not find it funny with those people that put us into this mess. When one is retired, is a condemned criminal. That is what we are today. You can see me, you can see. By the grace of God, this is where I retired to. But since then, I have one vehicle. That one vehicle, I cannot repair it, I cannot maintain it. So by God's grace, my daughter came and picked it to a mechanic. Up till now, it's not returned. Thank God you said you were coming. That was why I agreed, because if it is for me to come and meet you somewhere, I cannot. I don't have even 500 naira in everything I have. Since then, these people took us for granted. When I retired, it was tug of war for me to get half of about 15 point something million was my total. And I had to struggle with them before I got 7 million. And then the balance, I now took annuity and entered into One Chance, this African Alliance. A copper that served in my office, in budget office, was the one that introduced me to One Chance. And imagine, since May, they have not paid me and all the others. So they said that they are going to invest our money. And then it is all false. It is, what other term will I use to describe this thing? It is scam. I'm telling you the truth. You know, I have a cataract in these eyes. It's been troubling me. I needed money to go and remove it in that Tusley Foundation, Eye Foundation. I went there to get attention so that they can remove this thing and my eyes will be okay. but have not been able to raise the money. Most of our colleagues, they are dying anyhow because they don't have money to go to hospital. The situation is so bad. I have 2 sons that have finished university. You know, they served 2016, 2017. Up till now, they don't have job. It is still that little money they are paying us a pension that all of us will eat. Immediate family. You see now, the boys are not working. They are not working. They don't make money. Oh, every effort they make, nothing is coming out. I have another daughter that is working with the federal government from end of Abuja to another end of Abuja. That's where her office is. From Day to Karshi. That's where her office is. And she lives in Day. So the transport alone takes all her salary that she cannot give us a cup of water. It's too difficult. And we don't even call her because we know the situation she's passing through. So the situation is very, very hopeless.
I retired 31st of March, 2023. This is about 18 months ago. The federal government has not paid us anything. My PFA is IBTC. We've done everything. They done that reconciliation sometime far back in April. And I was notified for that reconciliations, giving me that there was excess money that they remitted, which about 48,000 thereabout, they deducted it back and gave me a balance of my retirement savings, my contribution and that of federal government contributions that made up the retirement savings, excluding the accrued rights. That is, the accrued right is the right that I'm entitled to for the period that I worked from 1988 to 2004 when this new act came into existence. The portion, that accrued right portion, has not been paid to me. And that is why I have not been able to assess my pension retirement up to this moment, after 18 years of retirement, after putting in 35 years.
Pension fund administrators became very important. In other words, they are, as their name implies, pension fund administrators. So the contributions go to these people. Now, but the concept is that the employee has the right to choose who he or she wants to be her pension fund administrator. So by the time the person retires, they have access to that pension fund. So the entire idea about the PENCOM and PFAs is to ensure that there's a healthy management of the pension space to avoid what was the characteristic of retirees in the past, whereby they retire but having access to their fund is very problematic. In fact, sometimes government will not have the money to pay them when they retire.
Yet, even retirees from 2023 have not been paid their dues. Aliyu, a pension administrator, offers insight into the challenges of the system.
Well, in as much as it's evolving and is an ongoing concern, I think there's need to continuously review the PENCOM, because if you look at the RSC retirement saving account, discover that there are a lot of conditions. The first condition is that when you have to leave your work before you are 50, there's a level you can only access 25% of it, which sometimes, you know, why can't you access 50%? And if you eventually retire maybe above 55, you still cannot access everything. It becomes a problem. I recall before, you cannot change your PFA. But now I think with the new law, we've been able that you can port, let them use that language, you can move from one to the other. So we want them to also continuously move into that direction to make sure it's to the benefit. In as much as it's helping government to also have money to use, we the workers also want to benefit from our pension. Do you want us to die before we can access the fund? And I think when you retire, to collect 50% is too small.
For Haruna Musa and many others like him, the fight for their pension continues as they grow older. The question remains, how long can they wait?